and our defense interest in these capabilities, but also to get exposure to the Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard, who are sort of the end users on the other side for this particular project. So thank you all for taking the time to be here today. There's a lot of partners involved behind the scenes in making things like this happen whenever there's multiple international partners. So too many to thank here today, but I will thank our colleagues from Navy Information Warfare Center Pacific and Third Fleet and U.S. Coast Guard for helping to establish some of the framework for these projects, and you'll hear more from some of them later today. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Megan Saunders, who's one of our program managers who's helping to execute the prize challenge. She'll walk you through the specifics of how to apply, the timelines, a little bit of a high-level overview of the actual problem statement that we're looking at, and then we'll pass it over to our colleagues from IWIC Pacific to talk a little bit more about the technical specifics of this particular challenge. So thank you all for being here today. We'll hopefully look forward to seeing your applications. And with that, Megan, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jesse, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. So just some general requirements for this prize challenge. The solicitation period will close on November 10th at 11:59. Presentation should be horizontal, and there is a 10-slide maximum. We plan on having a 5-minute pitch recording submitted for pitch presentations, and there will be a rehearsal on December 4th with the actual event to follow on the 7th. Winners will be announced the week of December 12th, and in order to receive an award, we require active registration in sam.gov. If you currently aren't registered, that's okay, but we highly encourage you to start the process sooner rather than later, as it can sometimes be time-consuming. So just a timeline for this challenge. The down select will end and the finalists will be announced on the 22nd. And as I stated, we'll have the pitch rehearsal where we'll just do a mic check, tech check, and then we'll have the event and winners announced. This is a problem statement. I'm not going to read it out loud for you all, but please feel free to review it, and it is also posted along with the more specific criteria on our Idea Scale campaign. So the pitches and submissions will be judged on these 5 main criteria. So the technical soundness and feasibility of your submission, commercialization, your team, the quality of your pitch, and the operational effectiveness. So now I will turn it over to Murph from IWIC Pacific. Murph, are you on the line?
Murph, we can't hear you if you're talking. While Murph gets his audio up, one quick thing I wanted to add, just for those who may be less familiar with prize challenges executed by the government and DoD. So this isn't a specific authority that we have. Many parts of the department and federal government have access to this. And really what it allows the US government to do, and the DoD in this case, is to be able to award in the form of sort of a prize and a check for participating in a prize challenge. And those prize challenges can be a virtual pitch, an in-person pitch, they can involve an in-person demonstration, they can be multiple phase. But at the end of the day, the beauty of the prize challenge process is it allows us as the government to cut a check very quickly and provide that just for participating and submitting your capabilities into that prize challenge format, whatever that might be for the particular topic. And so for those of you who may not have participated in prize challenges in the past, Again, part of the value here is the speed at which this process goes. As you can see from the timeline that Megan already laid out, it'll move pretty quickly from step to step. And at the end of the day there, we're going to be able to issue, a final check to the winners there in short order. So it's one of the more rapid tools that we have in the government to issue an initial award of funding. And then Murph, it sounds like, do you want to do a quick audio check? Are you able to speak now? Still can't hear you, Murph. So one other quick comment on prize authority. Again, and apologies for those of you who you may already know this, but part of the additional advantage of prize authority is that the competitive solicitation that we are going through in order to select the winners for this particular challenge does mean that companies who end up winning the challenge become eligible for follow-on other transaction authority contracts, which as part of our organization, Defense Innovation Unit, OTs are a very significant part of how we do business. And we think that it's a more nimble, rapid contracting tool that helps us take emerging capabilities from the commercial market and bring that forward to solve national security interests. So yes, the initial prize hopefully is incentive enough for you to participate and submit a good application. But the added benefit is that, if the mission partners really see a lot of interest in your capability, the winning of this prize challenge does allow for additional OT follow-on. And yeah, sorry, Atul, I'm seeing your question right now. Would the new OTAs require additional bidding? So great question. So I guess the short answer is it depends, but no, it does not necessarily require additional bidding. That's the competitive process that we're using to select a prize winner can count as the competitive selection process for a follow-on OT. So assuming that the follow-on, the contracting office, whether that's Defense Innovation Unit or another one of our Navy partners or someone else in the DoD sees the capability that comes to the prize challenge and thinks that it warrants follow-on funding, they can accept that your participation in this prize challenge counts as that competitive selection and then move into an OT contract. Now, depending on that contracting office, they may feel like they still need to compete that OT. And in that case, you would be able to use your winning of the prize challenge as sort of past performance to indicate the fact that you already had, interest from different DoD stakeholders to the point where you had actually won, government funds for the use case. So again, it definitely can go directly from a prize challenge win to an OT, but that sort of depends on the level of interest from the appropriate DoD stakeholders after the execution of the challenge itself. But great question, Atul. And hopefully I got your name there right.
You're good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, sometimes being so close to these challenges, we forget to do a general overview, but greatly appreciated. And yes, getting to the pitch event actually is enough to satisfy the requirements for eligibility for follow-on contracting. Murph, are you able to speak now? Well, while he's getting set up, there are 3 general use cases. I am no subject matter expert here, but this was from one of our colleagues, Bob. Looks like nothing is coming through. All right, Murph, no worries. I will go over some of the other requirements now while you can try to work on getting your audio connected. So back to the 3 use cases, there is the shore-based to in-volume, the surface to in-volume, and in-volume to in-volume. I wish I could specify further on these, but we'll just have to settle for this for now. Maybe Murph can touch on it further later. So getting into some of the required features for the submissions, we're looking for 250 kilobits per second at 1,000-meter depth. We're looking at a bit error rate less than 1/10 billionth. with an Ethernet interface, less than 30 watts of transmitting power, 300-meter depth rating, a water temperature range between 32 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, reliability greater than 200 hours, and it is able to function in a seawater medium. These are desired features, so not necessarily required for your submission, but an ideal submission would maybe touch on one or more of these. So 500 kilobits per second at 1,000 meters, less than 15 watts transmit power, 1,000-meter depth rating, water temperature extended to the 100 degrees Fahrenheit range, does not require data storage, frequency between 500 and 200 kilohertz, and reliability greater than 500 hours. Again, these are just desired features, so you do not have to meet any of these criteria, but it is encouraged to try and get to these points. I'm going to check in again, Murph. How are we doing with the audio?
I think we're just gonna press down, and I think we'll hear him when he comes on if we hear him.
All right, well, that sounds great. So with that, that is all I have to touch on specifically about the criteria. The entire solicitation and everything that you just saw is listed on the campaign page in the IDEA-Scale platform. So refer there for all of these features. And please feel free to email our distro with any further questions about this challenge. I have just dropped it in the chat. And with that, we will open it up to questions. Given some of the difficulties with audio, you can ask them, and Murph, maybe you can try to answer them in the chat while we're getting this squared away. Yes, Atul.
Yep, you're good. Uthel Deer from Collins Aerospace, RTX company, family company here. You mentioned earlier that this is a joint effort, allied nations with India. Oftentimes this domain is leading to ITAR sensitive and classified conversations. Is there restrictions on that, or how's that can be handled? Over.
Yeah, I can take that. So initially, the topic area as it's being described right here is distro A, and we're trying to keep these conversations for the prize challenge at a distro A level. So I would, and also in your submissions, that should hold true as well. So there is going to be, we intend on sharing at a high level the outputs in terms of proposed companies and what they're proposing to do with our India counterparts. So if there's any concerns about classification through that, then we need to address that up front and make sure that information is probably not included in these submissions. There will be opportunities for follow-on conversations, certainly with the mission partners on the US side, a tool that can move into higher classification. And we would certainly encourage that, but at least for the purpose of the prize challenge, everything should be considered distro A.
Thank you, Jesse. And just to add on, we ask that you keep in mind too that the pitch event is open to the public. So to withhold maybe some proprietary information if you're not comfortable sharing that.
So one more mic check. Is this coming through?
Oh, you're coming through loud and clear.
All right. So just had to use one of the dial-in numbers. I don't know what it is with the computer.
No worries. Glad you were able to get on.
Yeah.
Megan, why don't you go back to the first slide of Murph, let Murph provide some more context there, and before we continue on with the questions.
That sounds great.
So the purpose of actually the pictures here, even though they were rather crude, was simply to define some of the use cases that we were interested in. Each one presents its own challenges. If we're running off a shore-based station, lower depth, a lot of local wave noise, other stuff's in, thermoclines can be a little bit closer. And so that kind of environment has its own criteria and work that need to be solved. The second one there in the upper right, if you're going vertical through the water column, again, depending on the environment, there may be single or multiple thermoclines, which end up bouncing underwater acoustics and some other things. So, and then maybe a more ideal one, if you actually had two vehicles in relatively the same depth in the water column, you can get some channeling effects. Whales and some other animals, marine mammals, use these kind of functions for their communications. But the other slide that just had the statistics of what we were looking for didn't give a full picture of what the challenges could be, right, on what we wanted, right? This just gives some, like I said, some stats of what the stuff's supposed to meet, but I didn't want folks making the assumption that we were only talking horizontal or we were only talking vertical. You know, it's actually all three of those conditions in the other slide is actually what we're looking to operate in. So that was the purpose of the extra drawings, besides the numbers requested. Back over to you.
Hey, Murph, I had a question on this. So you give 3 different use cases here. For the prize challenge, are you looking for ideas on how to solve it? Or are you looking for like an operationally relevant demo, or what's your end goal on the challenge and then follow on OTAs?
So the challenge is to get this underwater set of acoustic modems functioning, right? The first thing one of the things we are talking about that's on the table is a possibility of a demonstration, right, as being the end of the challenge. In other words, we're not interested in PowerPoint solutions. So that being, we have facilities available. Whether it comes to a demonstration or not, I think I'll let the iDEX folks actually decide that and comment on it. But these are the conditions. If I acquired a set at the end of this challenge, these are the conditions I'm going to go run it in to validate its functionality. Okay.
Gabby, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Feel free to come off mute or drop it in the chat.
I'll add one thing, and Murph, you can correct me. You know, one thing that's nice about prize challenges, while we have our required and desired list there, you know, we do have the ability through prize challenges to be a little bit more flexible in you know, accepting applications. Clearly, those kind of set a standard for what we're looking for. But if you know, if your capability is, you know, maybe just off on one of the required, but hits many of the desired, or a mix there, you know, I wouldn't shy away from applying. We don't have to, you know, outright reject your application if you didn't hit every single one of the criteria they're listed as required. We'll be using those judging criteria that Megan went over earlier, but that, you know, that criteria will certainly take into account capabilities that may have a mix of impacts across the required and desired. So for those of you who are familiar with DoD contracting, the required list is not the minimum bar in which if you don't cross all of them, you cannot apply. But you know, we certainly want to see those things addressed, but If there, for whatever reason, if there was something off on one of those, but you still felt your capability was competitive otherwise, I would encourage you to apply.
Thank
Yes,
you, Jesse.
totally concur with that. We needed some kind of features to put out to sort of set the goal or the bar. And if you're just underneath the bar, that, as stated, it doesn't exclude being part of it. Which is why we talked a little bit about the difference. If you go from here to the next slide where it has sort of expected or what was desired, there you go. You can see an increase in speed over the channel, right? A reduction in power, a little bit farther depth rating, and then particularly reliability. The no data storage comes with one of the previous asks about the ITAR kind of stuff, right? So some of the information that might be transmitted across the system, it would be nice to know that we don't have to worry about scrubbing the system, right? It's just a pipeline. And that can help quite a bit with some of the implications that were there. Okay. That's all I have to add to the discussion. Back over.
Thank you, Murph. I will open it up one more time for any questions. Again, feel free to come off mute or put it in the chat. I've also dropped in our challenges email where you can email questions that might arise, and we will consult with the subject matter experts and get back to you as soon as possible. We also plan on opening a Q&A forum linked in IDEAScale in the campaign brief, and that will take you to a page where you can also post your questions there for public viewing, and we will get you a response within a week. Okay, well, nothing heard. So with that, I would like to conclude our AMA session. We will try to host another Q&A session in the next few weeks coming up. So thank you all for attending and joining, and we look forward to your participation in this challenge.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.